our company and our team have been tasked to be the compliance department. So what we do is we actually insert what is our area of responsibility and our action items. Here we go again. Hello again, PCQIs. In this video, our topic is going to be a product release program. Now, please be mindful, these are being recorded as I work on them, so they might not apply to your specific intended use. So I'm basically customizing these things per our clients' inquiries as well as requirements. So in this particular product release program, this is to implement 247.1.2 and .3 of the SQF code. So basically the scope based on this process we're going to be talking about, or part of this program to be incorporated, is about the product release responsibilities, methods of releasing the products, records, maintenance and record keeping, finished product label compliance, finished product release test and hold, the frequency of this activity, and it's also covering the quarantine or hold status release. Okay. So not all of it, I'm going to mention all of this thing because I like to keep my video short, just kind of give you a tidbit or a window of these programs. If you need full details, please contact me, info@consultorinc.com. So part of the policy in this particular facility, the release of the finished product for distribution is the responsibility of the quality department or the designee for that. And the methods of releasing the products per their intended process and activities includes label verification, where we put in the policy to ensure the correct label is affixed or applied into the correct finished product, right? Just makes sense. And the label matches the recipe or formula, okay, used in the finished product. The batch sheet or bill of materials slash recipes, sometimes, right, they use those used on the finished product, matches the label and the recipe and the formula. And on the finished product details that are going to be collected to fill out the finished product release monitoring form and batch sheet, minimum information must be collected. The finished product name, the product code, the brand name, the manufacturing date, the batch and or lot number depending on your process, expiry date, okay, the product description, and a label reference. So in this particular procedure, normally they would take that piece entering form or the product release form, and they would actually take a copy of the finished label and stick it on the back of the form. So to make sure that that's what the QA checked for, they can actually do a visual side by side. So there's a lot of different techniques, okay, PCQIs. So that's what it is, okay. Now you're probably thinking, why do we need the label reference? Well, later on you might have the recipe or the formula, and you might want to check it against the allergen declaration. Make sure the formula matches the product code or UPC code on the label. So depending on how you're tracking these things, okay. So part of this, as well as the records that are being maintained, obviously it's the batch sheets and the finished product release monitoring form will be kept in this activity, okay. But now some process, let me touch on this, on the finished product, depending on your risk level. Some of these finished product, at the end of the day, normally you would have the sanitation records that's been signed off by maintenance as well, the maintenance records, all the quality control slash activities for this particular product, the spec sheets, references for all the raw materials. So you have all of these. So depending on your process, so part of the code also says about regulatory. So this particular activity, the label actually is reviewed under 21 CFR Part 101 for the food labeling regulatory requirement. And on this particular label, part of the questions that we had, if they are exporting this label or is it just for US consumers only. So we've identified that in this particular program. So during an audit, when the auditor asks if you're following the regulatory requirements of the label, you can honestly say, yes, we do, because we're only for US consumers and we have done our 21 CFR Part 101 food labeling compliance requirement. Part of this as well is the finished product test on hold. It's included. Obviously, right, the finished product does not use positive release based on product pathogen or chemical testing. So some products out there, I kind of read that off this particular customization. So this particular product, they do not test it when they are releasing the product. The category for this, for their decision, basically it's because it's a non-RTE, and everybody has their own justification based on their HACCP developed for them by another third-party consultant, and we were tasked to put this program together. And based on our interview, that's what they're doing, so that's what we're putting on. Frequency verification, perform verification activities for each finished product release for distribution. So we put that on there because sometimes when we're working with a new PCQI on site, it's a lot of hand holding. It's pretty much ABC on instruction. So they have a lot of questions, and one of those is what if it's in quarantine or it was placed on hold for it's missing some documents and things like that. What do I do and how do I release that? So we actually put those methodology as part of their procedures. Okay. One of the section here is under procedures and responsibility. So part of this is procedures and responsibility that we've included. We've outlined what are the procedures for QA or QC or their designee. What are they supposed to perform? What are their verification activities? What type of training for applicable personnel we've lined up. Collecting of samples and how to carry out the verification activities procedures. How to maintain their records. Visual confirmation and follow-up on held or quarantine products. So we have procedures for them to make sure they just don't leave it. It's left there and weeks later and oops. Monitoring and documenting non-conformance observation. Such as any discrepancies or using CAPA report as well. How to validate training and adherence to the policy and procedures that they have implemented, and then who's responsible on identifying, tagging and placing on hold or disposing of non-conforming materials or work in progress, per their approved procedures. Responsible for holding hold tagging, what are they gonna, who's responsible for those? So they have a lot of activities requires records, obviously, and forms. And what is the responsibility of management? Sometimes you have a document control manager or part of senior management that they approve, review at the end of the week or at the end of the day. What does that look like for that? So in this particular example, we've tasked also management to review and approve the labels. Obviously, the recipe or the formula that they're going to be using, that's got to be coming from them, right? The batch sheets, bill of materials, pick list, and all of those things. And the finished product release forms for them to review, and also the records. Now, in this particular product release program, our company and our team have been tasked to be the compliance department. So what we do is we actually insert what is our area of responsibility and our action items. So we do our own verification. So we have, in this case, we've listed verifying records. Make sure all of these records are collected and reviewed. So we work with the quality department for that. We verify the training of personnel responsible for releasing, quarantine, or holding the product, as well as reviewing with the quality department the product release procedures. Like when changes happen, or if it's an initial product, we review those and discuss those with them, and also validate those procedures that they work. We review product release records, make sure they didn't miss anything, and if they did, and then we can then catch it and be able to collect those required documents for archiving. Part of it on our side is also evaluating the personnel, understanding the procedure. That is so important, PCQI. You might have all these wonderful programs and policies and procedures, also known as SOPs, and on the technician level or on your team level, they don't quite understand the process, and it's like herding cats, right, at the end of the day. So as your compliance requirement, you want to make sure that your team understand the actual processes. I'll give you an example of placing a product, placing the material in quarantine or QC hold, doing the sampling and other testing for that to be released. What are those? Sometimes things are put on hold and then something happened that the actual person did not release it. I'll give you one example incident. I received a phone call from one of our PCQI that we're mentoring on another facility. She received a load of pallets from their transport carrier. As she was doing the visual inspection, she saw crystals and things like that, so she investigated further, and come to find out it's glass contamination. So while they were moving that pallet, not their facility but the actual carrier, for whatever reason, there was a broken or a bottle and whatnot, and it was all over these pallets. So as she did her inspection, she did everything right. She tagged it, roped it off, and things like that, right? So, and then she called the manufacturer or her supplier, and they were issuing a replacement for her the very next day. So when she got back the next day, she was thrilled that she thought it was already been picked up. Well, guess what? That did not happen. It was actually partially used because they ran out of pallets. So the warehouse pickers, right, they didn't fully understand tagging, so they were just told there are pallets on this one section, and they just bunch and they used it. And now it's a nightmare trying to take those products back. They're already on the road, but the greatest thing about this is she documented that process the day before, and now she can trace it forward to where those products are going to utilize those pallets. And she was able to capture or inform the receiving warehouse to place those on hold. As a matter of fact, she's actually going there right now to verify those pallets so they could be either replaced or returned. So as you can see, it could take to the next step of stress and anxiety as a PCQI. So as a PCQI, let me repeat that. Understanding of personnel's responsible, right, for releasing quarantine hold or product release procedures, right? You have to monitor those, right? And let us know. We have techniques for that that you could perform to do that. Okay, and obviously it's through training. As compliance, we are also tasked to visually confirm and follow up on held and quarantine products. We want to make sure that those are fully accounted for and their disposition. Now, some of the things we inserted here for corrective action in the event that the finished product is out of spec or OOS, right? We wanted them to perform some of the following. Obviously, hold the product and tag it, right? And then and verify that all of the requirements subject to the verification activity sections are all performed prior to release. And that's including your organoleptic, your testing of pathogens, as well as chemical testing if they are part of that activity or of that procedure that have to be performed. If a rework or reprocessing is part of the corrective action, we have to write those separately. Some rework may include cooking or some heat treatment rework and reprocessing, or simply going back to the line and reworking those materials. So that's a totally separate program and a totally separate video. Okay, so in this particular program, we're including some reference document. It's just these documents that during an audit or while you're doing an internal audit, that these are attached that you might want to verify or confirm that they're part of these programs. And that's a product. On this particular example, it's the finished product release monitoring form, the quarantine and hold tag, applicable batch sheets, finished product specification, the recipe formula or / bill of material sheets, and the packaging / production records. So those in there. And of course, we put the references where we got this information from FDA, USDA, or any other guidelines, such as in this event, SQF as well. And after that, we updated the history section of the document for the revisions that we have applied. So during an audit, the auditor can then take a look at the older version and also confirm that those changes have been applied. All right. So anyways, thank you, PCQI. Just wanted to share those with you on our review, and we'll talk to you later. Contact us, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks again, PCQIs. Have a good one.